Halloween creature Candy Witch. I will never forget these last few days. Those days will be talked about for generations to come. This is the story of the days I was held in custody. I plotted to destroy the world and end up saving the world. My name is Candy Witch, and I'm a monster. Not the kind of monster you would expect, though. The story starts on the 31st of October, Halloween. A Halloween that changed my life and that I will never forget. Trick or treat, yelled the young trick-or-treaters dressed up in costumes. Before anyone could answer the door, I flew overhead and dropped a single piece of candy into each of their bags. The children looked up to see who dropped the treat. It was me, the Candy Witch, but because of my quick instincts, I quickly darted into the sky to my candy cloud. The cloud was invisible to anyone but me, and wherever I was in the sky, my candy cloud would be close behind me. The cloud was made out of every kind of candy you could possibly imagine, and everything you wanted, a kind of candy. All you had to do to get a candy was to say the name, and there was a cloud of candy by your side. In the cave, I peeked out to make sure it was clear before swooping under the clouds, not the invisible ones. I tried to find an empty street. It was dusk on Halloween, and the costumes were quickly filling the streets below. Everyone was trick-or-treating in the human world, and soon I would be too. Many years before, I had tried to come out on Halloween, but I had not eaten enough candy to be strong enough around humans. Now I finally had saved up enough candy and had been waiting for this moment for years. I found a completely empty street, and as quiet as a mouse, I slowly started to descend towards the black pavement. I pulled up gently on my broom to land and placed one foot on the ground and felt a shiver run down my spine. I'd never been on Earth for very long, and the questions were swirling around in my head. Should I do it? Should I not? At last I could not help it. I placed my second foot on the ground and stood up, and my broom snapped into my hand. I already had a costume, and I didn't even need to change. I was the Candy Witch, complete with candy corn body, witch hat, pumpkin face, and my favorite flying broom, ready to bring me anywhere I needed, which wasn't many places. Only on Halloween when someone said trick or treat. I blended right in on the streets on Halloween. As I walked down the street to trick or treat, each step I took I quickened my pace until I was in a full sprint, going 100 miles per hour as a blur to anyone I passed, but one. I looked up to see the lights on the street ahead, and I ran faster and faster until I saw something out of the corner of my eye. I skidded to a stop, and a little girl dressed as a witch stepped in front of me and stared. "Who are you?" she asked, quietly looking down. I just stuttered, saying, I hadn't expected anything like this, even less a human to ask me that kind of question. I continued to stare at the girl until she cleared her throat. "I saw you running, and who are you?" I didn't know what to say, only the truth. "I'm the Candy Witch. Actually, a Candy Witch," I began. "I'm not human, and I live in the sky in an invisible and moving cloud, and humans like you have to be inside to see it." I paused and looked at the girl with the bright blue eyes. I felt I could trust her, and living in an invisible cloud your whole life without anyone to talk to isn't exactly enjoyable. The girl looked shocked and yelled, "I don't believe you," before turning on her heel and heading off down the street. I sped up and stepped in front of her. "Look, I'm not lying. I can prove it." And before she could reply, we were on my broom soaring towards my cloud, but the little girl was thinking I was headed straight for thin air. The girl was screaming at the top of her lungs as we entered the opening of the cave. I hopped off my broom and was holding it up for the girl, whose eyes were shut tight. I suddenly felt a pang of guilt for the girl, and I had not wanted to scare her, only prove I was not lying. I gently shook her off my broom and talked quietly. It's okay, we're in my cloud. Don't you feel that you're on the ground?" She saw my point and slowly opened her eyes. As soon as she saw what was around her, her eyes popped out of her head, and she jumped up and spun around in circles. "You weren't lying?" she asked. I shook my head no silently. "I'm so sorry I doubted you. Do you want to be friends?" "I've never had any," she added quietly. "Me neither," I said, then added, "Of course we can be friends, but you have to promise not to tell anyone about me." "Deal," she shouted and stuck out her hand, and we shook on it. "By the way, my name's Candy," she told me, "though I'm scared of heights. Can we leave, maybe go trick-or-treating? People must be getting worried. It would look strange if I didn't come home with any treats," she asked hopefully. "Of course," I laughed. "I would do anything for my new friend." As we glided down towards a lit street, Candy's eyes were open and shining, and she fired questions at me about, well, being a monster. How is your cloud invisible? Do you have superpowers? How'd you become a monster? I didn't know. Do you know anybody else like you?" I thought for a moment before answering the questions as honestly as I could. I have no idea. I could not answer any of those questions. As we neared the ground before we came to a complete stop, Candy jumped off the ground with a wide grin on her face and batted away. "Remember," I yelled, "keep our secret." I didn't know if I could trust her. I hoped I could trust her. But I had a friend, and that was all that mattered. I knew I couldn't have trusted Candy, I yelled the next day. As soon as Candy ran off, she must have told the entire town about me. I remember seeing hundreds of people seeing me and charging at me, but how'd they know it was me, Candy? I remember the feeling of my foot slapping the pavement and not going anywhere. Then people realizing I couldn't fly, because there were more than 10 people, and charging at me. The last thing I remember is my head becoming dizzy and my eyes becoming heavy. I must have blacked out because the humans captured me. Candy! Now here I was, wherever here is. I looked around and nothing seemed familiar to me. No sky around me like a cloud. Weird. When I looked straight ahead, I saw glass that I could not puncture. As I spun around, I realized the glass was all around me, like a cage. Was I in a cage, I wondered? The only familiar thing I remembered was the mountains of candy around me. There was only one person who knew I was a candy witch. Candy, I screamed. I was stuck in this thing called a zoo, I later learned, and my new arch enemy came to visit every day. How is the zoo? Do you like your cage, she would taunt? And every day she would try to be there alone, until one day. I started to yell at her, saying, "Why are you taunting me? You can't be evil. I thought we were friends." "We are friends," she would reply. I'm known to be evil, but I'm not. You may have heard of me before. Evil Candy Witch. We are twin sisters. Evil Candy Witch unzipped what looked like a suit and looked up at me with beady black eyes. Her green pumpkin face looked at me, and instead of a smile like mine, there was a scowl looking around. We were complete opposites, and we were twin sisters. How is that possible? I looked at my sister in horror, and she seemed to be reading my mind because she said, "Shocking, isn't it?" She took a step towards me, and her dress of black licorice swayed in the wind. She took a deep breath, and behind her I saw a guard running towards her. I smiled to myself, hoping he would capture her, but she knew something was up because she spun around, saw the guard, and dove into her suit just in time. Now she was Candy again, with a fake smile plastered on her face. The guard dressed in muddy clothes was panting as he entered my cage's area. "Where's that thing?" he stammered helplessly. The evil Candy Witch put on an innocent face and looked surprised. "What do you mean, other thing?" she asked. Then I saw the guard looked confused for a moment before he shuffled away. "I could have sworn I saw something," he muttered to himself over and over again. My sister turned to look back at me when the guard was a safe distance away. "Do not leave the zoo. You are safe here, or ever try to tell a human who you are. Use the necklace around your neck to talk to me. Trust me, please." She gave a small smile as she turned away. "What necklace?" I began. She was almost gone from view. Then, stopping and turning around, she gave a small nod of her head and continued walking towards the gate. I reached to my chest and felt a small stone the size of a coin around my neck. I didn't know what to think of my sister. She was both nice and horrible. Eventually, I decided I couldn't like her. She was evil, after all, and I was going to do the opposite of what my sister said to me. I was breaking out of this zoo one way or another. On my broom, I went from corner to corner, edge to edge in my cave. There was not one opening or crack to escape from. I had not seen Candy in a few days, and I had not bothered to try to call her. I needed to escape and get my revenge on the zoo, or every other human. I spent the next weeks trying to escape. I finally figured out how to do it. Whenever I fly around, or whenever I pass, candy drops from the sky. All I need to do is save all my candy to drop, and then spend a day flying around everywhere, filling my cage with candy until it explodes. Then, with all the candy everywhere, it will create a candy tsunami, letting all the animals in the zoo go free, ruining the zoo, and getting revenge on all other humans, and the evil Candy Witch. While I was resting, I was trying to think why evil Candy Witch would tell me these things. And then it popped into my head in a light bulb. I realized when my sister pulled her suit on herself that I met a human when we met each other. But why would she send me to the zoo, I wondered. Then it clicked. Someone must have followed us to the cave and told everyone about me. I could not trust a human with our secret. They could lock us in a cage. And even if I trusted someone with our secret, evil Candy Witch was trying to capture the human, and she wanted me to be safe. Anyone could be around when I was telling something, so I could not say anything. I had to get my revenge. I waited weeks to collect enough candy for this day. I got up before dawn and began walking, flying any way I could make candy fall from the sky. My candy added up quickly because the zoo gave me mountains of candy to begin with. Thank you, zoo, for helping me get my revenge against you. I flew around for hours, and everyone was thinking I was crazy, but candy was piling up like snowdrifts, like the biggest snowstorm ever, only out of candy. I heard a loud rumble noise, and somebody yelled, "Earthquake!" But it wasn't an earthquake, not even close. It was candy, about to destroy everything in its path. The walls of my cage quickly shattered, and I was on my broom waiting. As soon as my cage was shattered, evil Candy Witch was at my side yelling at me. "You figured it out? Someone followed us to your cave, told the world, and I dressed up as a human to try to save you? And I told you never to make friends with human ever again?" "Yeah, so then I tried to break out, and now I'm just about to destroy the world." As soon as the words left my mouth, we stared at each other. We've dove down towards the ground, ready to stop what I had started. I was covered in candy when I woke up, and my sister was filming it in all the details. Apparently, the candy created a huge tornado, and all the candy got sucked up into the sky, gone forever, until that winter when it started to snow frozen candy. I still remember those days like it was yesterday. I met some other monsters that came out after they realized that me and my sister saved humans, even though I created the problem. I met humans who are actually really nice, and now monsters and humans live in the same town. Most importantly, I met my sister, my first friend and enemy, and now my best friend.